got your call. What's up?
There's a man waiting for you over at that table.
Yeah?
That's the second fifth he's had, and he's just as sober as when he walked in.
Wanted to see me?
Depends on who you are.
Peter Gunn.
Sit down. I'm Clay Baxter. I'm from Texas. I'm a cattleman, Mr. Gunn. I own over 40,000 acres of the finest grazing land in the state of Texas. When I want something done, make it a practice of hiring the very best people. I hear you're the best. I also make it a practice to pay top dollar. There's 2,000. Satisfactory?
What did you have in mind?
My brother Ross was killed yesterday. Happened on my ranch. Sheriff and coroner said it was an accident. I don't believe it.
Why not?
Ross was too good a horseman. If he'd have fallen from his horse, he'd have taken the fall right. Might have busted up something, but I wouldn't have killed him. Ross was murdered.
By whom?
That's what I want you to find out. There's your airplane ticket, Flight 32. I'll meet you at the airport in 40 minutes.
It's not much notice.
There'll be an additional 5,000 when you find the person who killed my brother. Is that notice enough?
I haven't been to Texas since I was a boy.
Airport in 40 minutes.
Hi.
Say, do you know Home on the Range?
Well, I think we could work something out.
Well, look, you practice up. I'll be back.
Where are you going?
Texas.
You're kidding.
Yeah? Smile when you say that, partner.
Why?
Why what?
Why do you have to go to Texas?
Honey, there comes a time when everybody's got to go to Texas. I'll see you when I get back. It's about 4 hours flying time to Texas. But we ran into some weather and were grounded most of the day. It was evening when we found ourselves over Texas, and that's quite a trick. Hardly anything's over Texas. Morning comes early on a ranch. Comes particularly early at the Baxter Ranch House. A ranch house is a Texas expression meaning more rooms than the Pentagon building.
morning, Mr. Gunn.
Good morning.
We went right ahead with breakfast. Didn't see any point in waking you. Sit down. What'll you have?
Coffee's fine.
Mr. Gunn will have some coffee. Wilma, this is Mr. Peter Gunn. Wilma Baxter, my brother's widow.
How do you do?
How you do, Mr. Gunn?
This is Jim Billings, the sheriff around here.
How do you do, Sheriff?
Howdy, Mr. Gunn.
Called over Jim this morning because I thought you two should get together. Jim's been investigating my brother's death.
Do you think it was an accident, Sheriff?
The coroner called it that. Claims Ross hit his head in a rock.
You don't believe that, Jim?
Well, it's not a question of what I believe. Now, Ross Baxter was a pretty good rider. He could have been thrown. All the evidence says he was.
What could have caused the horse to shy?
Snake, maybe.
Not that horse, and you know it, Jim.
Well, he could have stepped in a chuck hole. Now, he was limping pretty bad when he got back to the barn.
Where'd this happen?
A couple of miles from here.
I'd like to have a look.
I'll have some horses saddled right out there. By the way, Mr. Gunn, how are you with the horse?
Well, I'm a little rusty, but we usually manage to wind up together.
Reckon we ought to get going then. Almost 6 o'clock. The day's half gone. Morning, Frank.
Oh, morning, Mr. Baxter.
Sheriff. This is Peter Gunn, Frank. Mr. Gunn, this is Frank Kelly, one of my top hands.
How do you do?
Mrs. Baxter tells me you're a detective.
No, more of an investigator, Frank.
Oh? What do you investigate?
Sometimes people, when they seem too curious about what I'm investigating.
Saddle up some horses, Frank. We're going to take a ride out.
Yes, sir.
Nice-looking horses.
Thanks. That's one of the lots over here. Yes, sir. That's Ross's horse. Was. Oh, Frank! Better saddle up the black one for Mr. Gunn.
Yeah, boy.
You investigate horses, too? He's a little skittish with that bad leg. Might kick you. I wouldn't fuss with him.
No, he seems friendly enough.
The other horses are ready, Mr. Gunn. I'd like to get you saddled up. Mr. Baxter doesn't like to be kept waiting.
There's where it happened.
His body was right there.
You say he hit his head on a rock?
Now, that one right there.
It never make me believe he took a fall.
Why should anyone want to kill your brother, Mr. Baxter?
40,000 acres, ranch cattle worth maybe 25 million. Ross owned half the ranch.
What are you driving at?
Wilma, his wife. She stands to inherit everything he owned. Half of 40,000 acres is a lot of ranch.
Half of $25 million is a lot of motive.
All that's been considered, Mr. Gunn. Now, if Ross had been killed, there's a few people I'd suspect. But the point is, you have to prove he was murdered.
I had an idea about that horse. There was an inflamed area on his flank, as though it had been stuck or jabbed with some instrument. Someone had wanted the horse to appear lame. Clay Baxter seemed anxious to indict Wilma. So anxious that Baxter himself was a pretty fair possibility. And then there was Baxter's top hand, Frank, rather suspicious of strangers, which could incline a stranger to be rather suspicious of him. And then there was the sheriff. He didn't seem to suspect anyone.
Howdy.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Howdy, Jim.
Well, it looks like you bucked yourself a bronco, Mr. Gunn.
Did I?
Well, the coroner says that rock you brought in don't match Ross's head wound.
I didn't think it would.
Morning, Doc.
Clay? Suppose Jim told you about the rock, Mr. Gunn.
What about the autopsy?
Ross didn't die from a skull fracture.
What was it?
A long, thin instrument was jabbed into his upper eyelid, pierced the brain.
Killer probably used the same instrument on Ross's horse. That horse doesn't have a game leg. He has a badly inflamed hip. It's infected as though it'd been jabbed with something. You said Ross's body was found by a couple of old miners?
Yeah, Luke and Phineas Merriweather, two of the orneriest old coots you'll ever meet.
I'd like to meet them.
They own an old silver mine about 10 miles out of town.
You wouldn't care to ride out with us, would you, Sheriff?
Nope. Wouldn't want to break your streak, Mr. Gunn.
Somebody's home.
Oh, just the boys' ways of telling us not to come any closer unless they tell us. Luke! Phineas! What you want? Clay Baxter here. Got a friend wants to talk to you. This is important. It's about my brother.
It's about his brother, the dead one we found the other day.
Well, all right. Tell one of them to come on down.
Baxter!
Yeah, Luke.
Send your friend down. Well,
I understand you boys found Ross Baxter.
did.
Did you notice anything unusual? See anyone around?
You a detective?
Nope.
You're asking detective questions.
Actually, I'm a private investigator.
So, you're investigating Ross's death.
Why?
I think he was killed.
Maybe you think we done it.
Did you? Well, thanks, boys.
Rabbit. Supper. What'd you find out?
They like rabbit stew.
Well, he'll be all right.
Good.
Bullet went clear through, just under the collarbone. Didn't break anything.
Well, Mr. Gunn?
Well, what?
Oh, who do we arrest?
I don't know.
Clay said it might have been one of the Merriweather boys.
No, I don't think so. The Merriweathers were carrying shotguns. Clay was shot with a rifle.
Well, I better tell Wilma. She's probably worried.
Well, look, Sheriff, she's sitting right... Doc, do you carry some surgical probes?
Yes, but,
I'd like to borrow them.
well, I don't know.
It's important. Thanks. to feel a little better.
Mr. Gunn, I didn't know you were a vet.
Good evening, Mrs. Baxter.
Tell me, what you doing with Ross's horse?
I was just trying to help him out a little bit. He's had a pretty rugged time. Somebody jabbed a piece of this needle in his flank.
My goodness, what a cruel thing to do.
Well, it wasn't exactly cruelty, Mrs. Baxter. It's part of a murder plan.
Ross's death was accidental, Mr. Gunn.
The accident was planned. Your husband was knocked off his horse, then killed. Then somebody jabbed this needle in the horse's flank to make him pull up lame. Looked like he'd shy.
You mean somebody deliberately killed Ross?
That same someone tried to kill me this evening, but they missed. They got Clay instead. Mrs. Baxter, I'd like to borrow one of your horses.
Why, yes, of course.
I've got to ride out to the Merriweathers.
The two miners?
They saw the murderer.
Now, why didn't they speak up before this?
Well, they were afraid. Said they didn't figure it was any of their business. But I want to get a sworn statement from them.
How many times I have to tell you to lock the back door?
Boys, I think it's time we had a little talk.
What about?
About the killing of Ross Baxter. Now, look, I'm going to need your help.
What for?
To trap the killer.
We ain't interested in trapping killers.
Yeah, well, I think you will be. Because if we don't trap him, he's probably going to try and kill both of you. Don't move. All right, put the gun on the table. Nice and easy. Why did you kill Ross Baxter?
Wilma talked me into it. She promised me a share of the ranch.
Ah, come on, you can tell it to the sheriff. The next afternoon, after I'd boarded the plane for home, I noticed there were very few passengers. You see, people in Texas feel that once you get there, who's going to want to leave? But home is where you find it. Well, it doesn't say home, but it means the same thing.
Howdy, Slim.
Evening, ma'am.
How come you didn't write?
Weren't sure the stage would get through.
Engines?
Freeway.
How are things on the range?
Not so good, ma'am. Somebody said a discouraging word.
Crazy.
That's the word.
10 gallons?
Yep. Fill her up, Barney. Come on, little gal. I'm hankering for some victuals.
Arm in arm, they walked off into the sunset.